Hi, everyone, and welcome to the One Podcast. I love this guest. I've known you, what, three and a half, 4 years now. We were in a private group together, and I just instantly fell in love with her. And being in the private group, I got to see a side of her that the public doesn't get to see, which made me just really appreciate who she is and her heart and what she does. So I'd love to welcome our guest today, Jin Ong of the Art of Listening to Your Body. And I really love that that's one of the elements of what you do. Tell me a little bit about how that came to be, the art of listening to your body.
Well, first of all, I was told, don't use that name. It's far too long. It's a mouthful.
No, I love it because it is the art of listening to your body. It may sound long when you first hear it, but when you contemplate it, that is a beautiful thing that we all need to consider. There is an art, and your body is always talking to you, and you know this. You know how this works. So teach us a little bit about how you created it, and then talk about what you do.
Yeah, sure. And I guess what I'm really trying to get across with that, it's the art of listening is really important in all aspects of your life. And for me, the body is not just your physical body
Mm,
anymore. And I'll share why it once was for me. It's your external body, it's the environment
mm.
outside of you, it's your energetic and your spiritual body as well. But that concept can be a little bit difficult for people to grasp.
No, I love it.
But my story started as an osteopath. That's what I was professionally trained as. I came straight out of school into uni. I actually didn't really know what osteopathy was. I wasn't brought up with a lot of alternative and different practices. I would just go straight to the doctor if there was any issues or stay at home and get over it. But for whatever reason, I got guided towards osteopathy and I did absolutely love studying it. And then I moved from Australia to New Zealand because osteopathy was better recognized over in New Zealand.
Okay.
So it was easier to get clients and I wanted to travel. And so I got placed with some amazing osteos to work with. One who was very feminine and one who was very structural and masculine. And I got to take bits and pieces from them. Yeah, so I
Balance.
just fell into it. I grew into it. And about 4 years in, I then went through my own health crisis. It was my skin. I wasn't someone who usually experienced a lot of physical issues, but
Okay.
I moved to Brisbane, Australia to do a locum. And I didn't realize the environment. It was actually the climactic environment that really impacted me. And my face just exploded in cystic acne.
Oh no.
And then I had it all over my body as well, my chest, my back. And I'd said that it was very psychologically damaging.
Oh,
It
definitely.
was the worst acne I had ever had compared to being in my teens. So I was in my mid-20s at this stage.
Okay.
But then I started to get physical pain in my body. I had a rock climbing injury that didn't really recover. It just kept on getting worse. It was in my neck and my shoulder. I got an ulcer on my eye. I kept on getting sick all of the time with fevers that would knock me down for 24 hours. I would get colds and flus only on the weekends. And
Wow.
I just couldn't make sense of it. And I went into massive fix-it mode. So instead of doing the conventional routes, which I did as a teen when I was growing up, I explored alternative methods. So I started changing my diet and I changed my diet every 2 weeks. And on reflection, I was very controlling with my food.
Hmm.
And I would see the acupuncturist, I would see the osteopaths, I'd get things cracked, I'd have them put needles in me. I was just doing everything external. I was seeing beauty therapists and having really harsh skin peels. And it was like a full-time job trying to recover and make my skin better.
Yeah.
I then moved back to New Zealand for the second half of the year to ski patrolling, which was a new passion of mine, and skiing in the mountains. And whenever I moved back, my skin would get a lot better, but not
Mm.
completely better. Anyway, I went back to Brisbane again for another 6 month locum. So this is over a year later, thinking, I'll be fine. I started working on my mind. I started working on the emotional level. And I thought, I'm a different person. I'm going to be absolutely fine. And I moved back to Brisbane, and a month to the day, my skin breaks out, even
No.
worse this time.
No.
But
No.
then my health just kept on going downhill. So I then started to get stiffness in both of my ankles, which I knew wasn't a good sign.
Oh,
And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I am triggering an autoimmune condition. And I had seen this in my patients and how unwell they were. So I thought, I've got to do something about this. But it just didn't make sense to me because I loved my job. I was making great money. I was in a great relationship, albeit by distance. And I had great friends in my life. So I'm
yeah.
like, I just don't feel stressed. What is going on? And then I guess the nail in the coffin was I then broke out in hives and rashes all over my
Oh my
body
God.
in a
This
really
is
bizarre,
awful. This is
I
awful.
know. So this is over a decade ago. Like my skin's
Mm.
perfect
Yeah,
now.
just keeps happening and happening and getting worse and worse. And you're not that old. I would be dying. I'm feeling for you. Keep going.
Yeah,
I
and I
would
was
die.
starting to see these issues in my patients as well. A large majority of my patients were getting really great results as an osteopath, but then there were just the select few where this doesn't make sense. They are not responding to what they should be responding to. And I was just getting this feeling about where they were emotionally, or they were talking about their job or their relationship or these other aspects, other facets in their life, not just their physical issues. And I ended up doing a 10-day training, which helped me recognize that I could see patterns in people's bodies and what was going on in their life outside of their physical body. But I guess the breakthrough for me was one morning when I was getting ready for work and I had these big, like, sliding wardrobe mirrors. I could see my body with all this, like, rash in the
Ouch.
most random and bizarre locations. I had acne all over my face, my chest, and my back, like big cysts. But this rash was in my joint line. So it was in my elbow, my wrists, my belly button. It was over my knees and also my ankles. And actually, I hadn't put the pieces together many years prior, but I used to break out in this random patch of rash on my knees every now and then. And it wouldn't go away until I literally scratched it to a scab and then it would disappear. So I wasn't listening to my body all the way back then. It had to get to this point. But I just had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh. And I just looked at my body with awe and amusement, and I wasn't in the fix it mode anymore. And I just had this little message land in my head that said, oh, this is what you've been trying to tell me all along. And I started processing my emotions because the life I was living just was not sustainable. It was very expensive. It was very time consuming, going to all of these appointments. And I don't know what led me down that pathway, but I got a message saying, you need to speak your truth. And I was like, well, that's a bit vague. What exactly do you mean?
Can I have
And
more detail, please?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
What
exactly. Thank you, nurse.
exactly did you mean by that? Okay, but wait,
Yeah.
before we go any further. So when you got the understanding as you're looking in the mirror and you're feeling different about yourself, the understanding was you need to listen to your body? Or what was that clear
Yeah.
understanding? Okay.
Well, the first thing of, oh, this is what you're trying to tell me, this is the message you've been trying to give me all along, that's when I could see my body and that it was trying to tell me something, but I just
Okay.
wasn't listening. I didn't
Ah,
understand the language of my body.
there
But
you go.
processing my emotions, I got this first message that was a bit vague. Then I got a second message a little way down the track as I kept on going deeper into my past. And the second message was follow your intuition, which is also a bit vague.
Yeah.
And then I just had this light bulb moment. I can't remember how it came about, but it started to put everything together. And what the truth and intuition meant was you can intuitively see. I can't remember which order those came in. I think it was intuition first, then the truth. But anyway, it was that I could intuitively see the emotions stuck in my clients' bodies that was responsible for all the undesirable manifestations that they were experiencing, and that I needed to speak the truth to it. So I was like, oh, really? Is that what I have to do? And it felt really uncomfortable because it felt out of scope of my practice and so on. But I didn't listen to that message for a couple of years, but I left that job and I ended up going off to have a baby. I tried meditation. I was trying all these other things and my skin just kept on speaking to me. When I was postpartum, when I had Violet, I ended up triggering another autoimmune skin condition. But eventually, I was just left with no other option but to be the practitioner that would speak to these emotions that I could see stuck in people's bodies. And as I did that, as I stepped out, created the clinic, being the osteopath that spoke to emotions, my health started to improve remarkably.
Wow.
And then other layers would come up that would make me go deeper. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I had no other option but to go online. And I had a team, I had responsibility. But what I've learned is you've got to create the space. And I just got over what anyone thought about me. And I started speaking about this online. And then it just started to explode. And actually, I retired as an osteopath. I've just finally let go of that identity.
Congratulations on your retirement. So while you're going through it, after you're getting the clarity, you need this is what your gift is and follow your intuition and you need to speak this, but then you continue to have these health issues and you have your child and you're still getting the flare-ups. Is there any time during that in the back of your mind you're hearing that thing again? Remember what I told you? You're going to keep having this. Why aren't you doing it? Because I know I've had that. Like, I should have started the podcast 2 years ago and I wasn't going to do it. And here we finally are. Thank heaven I didn't have skin issues. But did you have those little nudges of intuition? And then what made you not act on those? Because I think a lot of listeners and viewers recognize this. What was the final straw? Was it that COVID hit and you were forced to put it all online, or had you started speaking with some clients a little bit beforehand, testing it out and seeing how that worked?
Absolutely. And I love that question because I see it in myself still. And I also see it in my clients where it's, oh my gosh, the way I help people process their emotions is how you get the message, not just from your body, but from your experiences. Because I now say that by the time stuff hits you on a physical level internally, it's like you've missed all the other signs that have been trying to speak to you.
Hold on. I want you to, and I don't want you to forget what you're saying, but I feel like that is such an important thing, people. I want you to hear that. I don't want to run past that. I really want you to hear that. By the time things are manifesting in your body and you're getting signals from your body, you've been missing some hints and signals outside. So, for anyone who is struggling with some body issues right now, some of those things that are frustrating you, I want you to sit for a second and think about, were there signals? Were there things? Were there intuitive nudges? For those of you that are getting intuitive nudges that you're ignoring, I want you to really hear that because your body then reacts. If you're ignoring everything else, your body's going to react. Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I felt like that was so.
That's perfect.
Okay, keep going.
Sometimes we need to hear it in other ways. And the other interactions happening externally is the people that you cross paths with that might trigger you, or the people where they're offering you like such an opportunity, but you don't take that on board. Or for me, it's looking at my animals and also what's happening in the lives and the stories that people share with me. Like I've always got like a background dialogue going on in my mind. Even now, sometimes my body will still give me messages, and I say these messages are what help us move forwards. But sometimes they feel like, oh my gosh, can you not give me something easier to deal with? And so I will sit there and letting go of my osteo registration. I just kept on paying the renewals year after year, even though I tell my clients, a psychic told me, just let it go. It's holding you back. But I couldn't make the decision to let it go. And then I finally made the decision because I also say that if we don't make decisions for ourselves, decisions will be made for us. And then we're not happy with that either. Anywho, so yes. So this was back in 2011, 12, and 13. And then I decided I want to have a baby. I'll go and meditate and do Vipassana meditation. And only if I can meditate an hour in the morning and an hour at night and it fixes my skin, I'll do it. But yeah, then I got triggered with lichen sclerosis in my armpits, which is such as apparently one of the itchiest skin conditions. It was crazy. Through a series of personal development that Gav and I did, we just drained our bank account 2016 in July. We moved to New Zealand and we both started businesses from scratch. So Gav is a mountain guide and me as an osteopath. It's funny because we high-fived each other in the air last night because we both retired from our professions.
Oh,
He
I
did it
love
as
that.
well.
High five, people. Yay. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we're like starting from scratch and we're letting go completely. as well. And so I did get to the point where it's like, Jen, this is the only thing that you haven't tried. And actually, it's going to cost you nothing financially to start trying to speak this way. And it was easier because no one knew me, really knew
Mhm.
me in
Mhm.
Monica. And so I took that leap, and there was a whole bunch of people that never came back to see me. And I still have some of those clients in my life that have followed me as I have evolved. And the pandemic, I'm grateful for so much because for me, it did drive me from a place of fear to make changes.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I had already been dreaming of doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
But I guess I was just like quietly in my own way, waiting for it to be perfect, waiting for it to be easy. And, you well and truly know as well, like putting yourself out there, it's deep work.
Hmm.
So it was fascinating because it just took off and it grew exponentially. And then my energy started dying out of the clinic. And this was one of the other signs I looked at. It was I just couldn't hire people. They were going to work for other people. And I was losing practitioners. And I remember saying to myself, I have to sell this business before it dies in the ass and it's not worth anything. And so that was another decision I had been deliberating on for 18 months, getting these messages through processing. And then one day I made the decision, and within 3 days, I had a buyer. Within a month, I had sold that clinic. And I realize over and over again that when I follow my desires and align with the timing, that things move so fast, which is why we do this emotional work. But yes, I was dabbling in it with certain clients,
Good.
and now I just speak to everyone this way. And whether or not you're ready to hear it or not is up to you. But I've had so many people, because I've been living in this town now for so many years, that I do cross paths with people that I haven't seen for many years, and they say, Jen, you called it all those years ago, or you knew it, but I just wasn't ready. And so these can be big things like sell the business, leave that relationship, move, whatever it might be.
Wow. And I think this is so beautiful because not only is this applicable, it's almost applicable in every circumstance. You
Mm.
are getting these signals, and we all have to face the one thing keeping us back. And then the things that you should is not a good word. The gifts and talents that you have, and things that you're good at, and things that come naturally for you, and also those little dreams that we have hidden that we would love to bring to light, but what? The judgment, but will look funny, but it might cost me, but I have this career. There is so many things. And I remember when I think we met a little bit before you were considering selling the practice and you weren't hiring anyone and you were getting frustrated. And then I remember you are the most magical manifester. And you just said that. You didn't say to the extent, but the second you get clear in your mind what you want, it's like boom, boom, boom. The universe is all dump it on her. And I remember the first time thinking it was around the time you were looking to buy the land and the property and your big dream about it. And you were going to have to sell your other place. And I remember it happened so quick. It didn't happen originally, then it does. And I remember thinking, she manifests so big. And I manifest like $5 in the washing machine. What? I remember being a tiny bit jealous in that moment, but also being like, well, if it's possible for her, it's possible for me. It's just she makes it look so easy and so simple. But what I think now, knowing you and looking back, and I would love for people to test this out, is I do think the truth is when you are willing to follow the nudges of what your specific intuition is telling you to do, then things do line up. And I think the universe, God, whatever you believe in, is literally sitting on the sidelines like, is she going to do it now? Is she going to do it now? Oh, so close. Damn it. She was so close. We almost had her there. We almost had her there. Okay, send her some other signals. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, she's walking. She's walking. Oh, she stopped again. Damn her. I just think they sit there like, is it the time? Is it the time? We're so close. She's going to do it. She's going to do it. She did it. Here you go. Dump it all in, dump it as fast as you can. Give her all the blessings so she doesn't
Yeah.
out. And if we look back on some of the opportunities we actually do take, when you take that, it's not as scary as you think. And Sometimes long term it doesn't work out. Yes, sometimes not everyone around you is supportive, but I do feel listeners and viewers can think back to, okay, when was a time that I did take an opportunity and it turned out well? And if I could survive that, then what if I take this other opportunity that feels even bigger and better? What's going to happen? And you are a living testament of what happens when you actually follow. It shocks me that you had to go through so many. Maybe that's why you manifest so big. Because if I would have
I
had to
do
live with the
believe that.
rashes and all of that, yeah, you deserve a house and a property and lots and lots of money and beautiful horses and cute dogs. Like, I would have had to live through that. I would have wanted that too. But is there, speaking of, but a little off topic, is there in your study, what is the representation of skin? Because yours was manifesting so much on skin. Is there a specific thing?
Yeah, so it's so interesting, and I do put some of these things on my social media because it's very obvious to me, and it's quite funny. I don't know if this lady will listen to this. I won't mention her name, but
Mhm.
as soon as I put my retirement in, where I submitted, I don't want to be on the register anymore as an osteopath, an old client from my osteo days who I remember, she listened to what I said and she made the moves. She contacted me after many years of not hearing her saying, "Can you help me with my partner? They've got elbow pain." And she said, "No worries if you like, totally on a different path." And I said, "Well, look, no, it's funny that you would message me at this time, just testing. Do you really want to let go of this? I haven't treated hands-on for many years."
Mhm.
Um, and I just thought, okay, this is an opportunity that I get to say no to. But by the way,
Yeah.
if your partner's got elbow pain, that means that he needs to make a decision around something. So you can go and pass this message on. So there are some body parts and things that affect us physically that can be interpreted on that level. But what I say more and more is that you've got to interact with me individually to get to the deeper root. And
Mhm.
then my thing is process your emotions. And so you can process on a specific body part and find out the message it has for you that
Ooh.
is unique for you. So, and I wrote about this in my book that I'll
Yes,
share with
she
you
has a new
later.
book, brand new
Yes.
book. Yes, she just got it. Show it.
Yeah, well, okay, so hang on. So the
Yeah.
skin thing, I
Yes. Oh,
talked
yeah.
about it in the book because what I say for skin, but I actually think that we can relate to this for anyone, even if you don't have skin issues, is that your skin is the boundary between your internal and external world.
Mm.
And so when you have skin issues, and mine was acne and rashes, and it was very red because that's part of my constitution. So if we're talking about acne, eczema, all of these things, there are so many different presentations of it. And there are some people that have skin issues and it's just not a problem for them. So I'm not speaking to those people. But I could relate to that because intuitively I could see these emotions stuck in people's bodies. So that was my unique story. And
Wow.
I was too worried about the criticism and judgment that would come from my patients, my family, my peers, if I was to speak this way. And then
Mm.
there was a moment where I just have to get over this. And then my skin actually got better and it got triggered at times. And I will say that my skin can still flare up
Yeah.
with a little itchy spot or a pimple here and there. And it did. My body flared up when I was writing my book. And I'm like, oh,
Mm.
this book is another level of visibility. It's another level of permanence around what I am sharing. So,
Oh.
when we make moves in alignment, it's not unusual for us to be hit with challenges or for our barometer to flare up. And so many people, if you're not supported on the journey, would go, oh no, my body's saying no. And it's like, no. And so
Yeah.
this manifestation, I feel like I say accessing your past is so important for accessing your future and
Mm.
manifestation. And I find it really difficult to teach people manifestation unless I know they've done the emotional work
Mm.
because it pops up and you get new challenges, new fears, and you have to know that you can handle the challenges and you have to know that you can handle the success as well. But yes, you are
Yes.
the first person that I got to show this to. It
I feel
arrived
so special.
yesterday.
I feel so special. I
Yeah.
love
So,
it.
okay. So this is my new book, Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. And it's just so interesting because I'm a huge advocate for creating space in your life.
Mhm.
And this actually came about when I had two foals born last year, and I intentionally took 3 months off to spend time and I wanted to see their birth and not have too many calls scheduled. And ended up writing this in a month. It was so fast. That whole thing
Oh,
of you make a decision and then you got to keep up with the momentum. And thank goodness I had space to focus on it. But anyway, this is the luxury limited edition. So I got the sample because we didn't know if it was going to deboss properly, and
yeah.
it's foiling.
Oh, I love
And
that.
this one actually has a very, I'm not going to show you, so no one knows, but there's a special page 333. Even that, like it's 333 pages. Is
Yes.
I didn't try and do that. And then, yeah, so it's color on the inside. It's got bookmarks in
Oh,
here as well. And yeah, this is encompassing all of the emotional work that creates the platform for the manifestation. So yeah, I'm only going to have 222 copies of this one for sale, and then I'm doing the paperback launch on Amazon, which is a different cover, but it's still really beautiful.
it's so gorgeous. It is healing beyond the diagnosis. When I first hear that, I think, okay, I'm going to be drawn to it after I've gotten a diagnosis for something negative. But this is about before and after, right? And there was one thing that you said that I wanted to go back to. Knowing about the past is so important about
Yeah,
to know
access your
the
past,
future.
access your
Yes,
future.
yes. Say more about that and then talk a little bit about all the book encompasses for everyone who
Mm.
comes across it.
Yeah. So, okay, accessing your past to access your future. So, when I get people to process their emotions, it's usually around past experiences. And so many people feel like their past is responsible for how they're showing up in their present, how their body is showing up, and also what I want people to extend to outside of your body to how are your relationships, how's your money, how's your work, how's your energetic and spiritual connection, your friendships, and so on. Like, how can you just attract everything that you need and desire into your life? And so I think a lot of people in a society do identify with pain. So I say pain is the gateway to liberation. It's an entry point, and understand that you're having this experience and we can turn it into an opportunity. But I get people to process their emotions because usually we don't because we don't know how, or we're too busy, we don't create the space and it's inconvenient. And some people feel like, oh, well, I don't want to go into that because it's going to paralyze me. I've got so much on in life. How am I going to cope? Do I have capacity? Like all these excuses and all these fears come up, and I write about the top 5 fears
Okay,
in my
good.
book just
Mm-hmm.
to help people identify and know,
Yeah.
this is where most people start. But when you process your emotions from the past, so many people are surprised at actually some of the most mundane things that they wouldn't even consider processing brings up so much feeling and so much emotion. And other times, the traumas that they have told as stories actually aren't that significant. So
Mm.
for me, rather than hearing someone speak and speak and speak about it, it's let's just go and find out. And the process that I take people through, once you learn it, it can take as little as 30 seconds, 60 seconds
Wow.
when you really nail down the process. But why you've got to go back into your past is because you actually have evidence that these things happened in your life, but you didn't experience the emotion, you didn't feel the emotion. And
Mm.
emotions and feelings have a sensation. And sometimes those sensations are uncomfortable. So that's why I get people to go back into the past because you have evidence for it. And now you get to feel it. Because if you try and bypass that step and just go straight into the manifestation, whenever you go into like manifestation groups, they're going to get you to anchor into a desire, a vision, and sometimes that vision feels really impossible. You have no evidence for it. And then they ask you to embody the emotion and embody the feeling. And you're like, but
What?
I don't know how. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the value of going into your past. But I always say to people, you got to get out of always forever processing your emotions and being in the trauma. Like sometimes it can be just too negative, but it then creates a foundation for a transition point where you anchor into your future. And the more impossible, the better. I had these impossible visions when I wanted to start a clinic. I said I wanted a clinic in Wanaka and one in Queenstown. And I remember at a personal development seminar, I got up on stage and I said this. And even though it scared the crap out of me, like I was on maternity leave, who's this person that's going to create this business? I even declared the revenue that I was going to make in year 1, 2, and 3. And I hadn't even started this business. And it was a 5-year vision.
Uh-huh.
but it happened within 18 months.
Wow.
And just as you said, you make that decision and you make the moves, everything comes at you really thick and fast. And you got to have the space, you got to have the capacity to actually hold it. So my business went from one person to a team of 12 and two locations within a period of 6 months.
That's nuts. That is
And
what
then, of
that
course,
is what happens with you. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, what was it? When I was in that group with you, it was like six horses came into my life over that
She's
period
like,
of
I'm
time.
on a horse, or two, or four, or five, or oh, and babies, and a new
Yes,
dog. Yeah, I
yes.
love because you're an animal lover, which I love. So for me personally, something that I had always contemplated is, well, I don't remember a lot of my past, which I'm grateful for. I don't hold on to the past. It's not a thing for me. So it's not that I haven't had challenging experiences, but I feel like those are behind me. And so there
Mm,
has been times where I've met or dealt with people that they're still telling the same painful story from 25 years ago, and that's held them back all these years. And I've tried to learn that my way isn't necessarily the right way, and that I shouldn't have judgment in those situations. And some people, that is the way that they feel, and I need to honor that. But so I like what you're saying. I'm trying to formulate my question. So there's a very fine balance between revisiting the past for looking for what you didn't feel and what you didn't feel the emotions, and then letting that go so that you can anchor into the future. And that's what you do, right?
mm,
So clients come to you with all different things. Like, I've got health issues going on, I've got mental issues going on, I'm not manifesting the things I want in life, but mainly it is, hey, I'm seeing these things going wrong. And then you have the ability to look and say, okay, it's not just physical. Tell me everything that's going on
mm,
around you. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me how your relationships are going. How's your career? What's your thoughts on money? I hope that people are hearing it is the combination of everything. Except when we feel pain or when we're looking at our past, we're pinpointing this one thing, this one problem. And then sometimes if it's in our body, we're just blaming our body. Like, why isn't my body working for me? I'm not willing to look at the rest of that. So I guess my question is, for those that have never met you, although I do encourage everyone to go and find you, and we'll talk about how to do that. What is something that they could do? Like, let's say we've got someone who's listening. Let's do two examples, and maybe they're the same, but maybe different. We've got someone who is dealing with a lot of physical pain or something that they can't seem to get rid of in their body. Where is a place to start with that? Actually, let's just start there. Where would someone,
yeah.
before they find you, or if they can't, get in touch with you, can't work with you, what is a
Mm.
good starting point to be able to relieve some of this and move?
Mm, okay. Well, I've got three things in mind.
Okay.
So if they are listening to this and they've got physical pain, then I do have a free masterclass. Like, I used to never put any of my stuff up there, but it's called The Missing Link, and
Ooh.
it will help them identify with the thoughts that are going on in their mind. Because I think that sometimes if we go on this journey and we're yet to have any support, we feel like we're the only one out there. But
Mhm.
I have seen a lot of patterns, and that's
Yeah,
I only speak when I see patterns two or three times, or it's, oh my gosh, okay, other people need to hear this
you're right.
that, haven't found support in their life. So the Missing Link Masterclass will be something that you resonate with or not. I do say my work isn't really for beginners though. Like, you do have to have done quite a bit of work to get to the point of like, right, I need to work on my emotions. So I think it's part of your journey as well to externalize. And
Hmm.
it's funny because like you and I and a lot of people out there listening will love the talk of holism and looking at all facets of life, yet we still find it easy to hyper focus on someone that can help me with this health issue, or
Hmm.
I need to go and see the osteopath for my shoulder pain. And then it gets too much when they start, why are you asking me about my relationship? Why are you asking me about my job? What does this have to do with it? And again, that's just part of your journey. And anyway,
Yeah.
so pain, there's that. I do typically work with a lot of people with cancer. And so there's another cancer masterclass. And I used to have only that available for people. And I'd say, even if you don't have cancer, still go and watch that. Just replace it with whatever you're experiencing.
Mm. Ooh,
And for some people, it's like this whole thing of, oh my gosh, you're blaming your body, but you're in relationship with your body. Your body is your friend. It's trying to give you a message. You just need to learn to speak the language. You need to learn to listen to it and sometimes just quieten down and find out this message. But the thing is, if it's a good friend, it's going to tell you the truth, and you might not be ready to hear the truth,
and you
but it's
might
going
not
to tell
like
you
it.
anyway. Yeah.
You
For some
probably won't
people,
like it.
yeah, yeah. But once you start to trust it and you really tap into the intuition, there's all these stages and phases that people go on. It's amazing what opens up. And I just, you know, how you talked about the evidence of what other people can create. And that's where I get even more accountability to hold myself responsible, to make the moves, to make the decisions, because I want to show people what's possible. But sometimes it then creates this huge distance, or people say, well, you can do it because you were an osteopath. And that's why I'm like, I'm letting go of it. I wish I almost didn't have it, but that was part of my journey.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, that's the physical, is that look at physical pain as an opportunity, a gateway. And, you know, sometimes it's hard for me because I will call people out when they're just holding on to a story. And I think there's a way to share your story where an underlying energy gets picked up on that you've moved past it.
Hmm.
And there's the ones where you still feel like they're still in the victim mode, but maybe no one has told them this because they're worried that you won't like me. But
Yes.
I don't want to be liked. I want you to step into who you are and I want you to go beyond this story, especially if it's holding you back. Let's create a new story.
Oh, and I feel that this is the link, and you just said the missing link, and I wrote it down. I'm getting this really good feeling. Okay, for those who come across us that are willing to be open, already know they've had the nudges that, oh, there might be something more to this than just my back pain. There might be
Mm.
something more than just my weight gain. It might not just be genetics, or hey, this chronic thing keeps coming back, or you get the diagnosis for cancer. This is the evidence that there's possibilities of change, and the change can come quickly. It's just more than you had considered, and she has free resources for you. And then I also felt while you were talking that I think, as you were saying, some of us, we have that element of our story where you can choose to actually give it credit for being a part of the story, whether or not it was negative or painful. It is a part of developing you into the person that you are now. I would never be this person without the things that were negative, challenging. And in fact, sometimes the challenging things are the best parts because they show you who you are. You can't become who you are if it's always easy. There's so much more of you to learn. And if we look at those things, that's where we develop character traits that are priceless for when you become the bigger version of yourself. And so it just all started to make sense to me that for anyone who happens to listen or see this, if you are right on that edge of, I know there's a bigger version for me, I know that there's more I could step into, okay, be prepared. There might be some things showing up for you that are a little challenging, that seem to be blocking you. And can we let go of the stories from the past that are in the back of our minds saying, there's no way you can because this, and people won't like me or whatever. There is that difference between people who've lived through the things and let them go. They're a statement of fact, I've lived through this, but there's not emotional attachment to it, and I'm not a victim anymore. And then the ones that are still in the victim mode. If there is someone who's in quote unquote victim mode, that hurts and that's painful and it feels judgmental. But actually, I do want to say very strongly, I'm sorry for offending you
Mm.
if you feel that, but I do want to as strongly say we are evidence that you can move forward. I'm not going to use the words get over it, but
Mm.
if there is someone who's listening who hasn't been able to move forward, go find Jin. And it is possible. It is possible to
Brilliant.
have a much bigger, more beautiful, more fulfilling life. It is possible to live the desires of your heart. It is possible to move just a small change into something that is more pleasurable. We aren't meant to live lives of pain and disappointment and unhappiness. We're not. No God, source, the universe sent you here to be like, you're the unlucky one that gets to suffer for
Mm.
53 years and everyone else gets to have fun. So enjoy that. It doesn't work that way. So if you happen to be someone who has experienced a lot of really horrible negative things, I'm inviting you to maybe think differently and be open to reading a new book, be open to the fact that there is possibility ahead. And I think part of, with this being the one podcast, part of becoming the one is being able to look back on the challenging conditions in your body, the challenging conditions outside, the things that didn't work right, the frustrations, it looks like everything fell apart. All of those were an important era of becoming this person. And I sometimes invite my clients to sit back and look at, okay, if you want to think about, the top five or if there's more, if there's 10 challenging experiences in your life, things that still seem disappointing. I don't want to say wrong and bad. I don't like that. But if there are those experiences, I invite people not necessarily to look for the lesson, but to look for the character trait you developed because of that. And if you can find the good in, I became more resilient, I became more compassionate, I became more loving, I became more understanding for people that go through this, I became stronger and I became more patient. There's so many great character traits that happen when we go through those things. And if you take that, we do carry our character traits with us, and they become the woman we're becoming, the man we're becoming. And we wouldn't have become this version. And the next version that's waiting for us requires letting go of some of the identities we've held in the past, which is so much of what you're going through right now. The letting go of, I was the osteopath. I had the physical businesses, and I'm now moving into this whole new phase. And we were talking before the podcast started about being willing to move when you don't know what's next. And I think that that's key. You have a lot of evidence that, okay, I've looked back on my life, and when I move, even if I don't know what's next, I can take that leap. And there's a sense of bravery there. What do you think made you the type of person, or what is it in you that allows you to say, okay, I feel I can go. I feel this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I can do it. How,
Yeah.
what is it? Because I think that will help people that are at any level when they're feeling that, oh, it's coming. There's a next step. There's a next level for me. What is it that helped you to do that?
Yeah, sure. I just quickly want to say as well, because you were saying, diagnoses, is that I would love to work with more people before you actually have the diagnoses.
Yes.
Uh, but I guess I was just used to being this osteopath where you were like bottom of the line to be the last person to see because you were an osteopath. And so I guess I transitioned that into the emotional work where people had seen everyone, and then it's okay, you're the last thing that I haven't done is deal with my emotions.
Yes.
But more and more, I get some people that never have physical issues and they're ready to move. And I'm like, cool, okay. So there's two halves to my stories, like the pain part that I've moved past,
Mhm.
and that's what I teach now to people. And I want you to know that this is where I start with everyone. Even if you don't know where to start, that uncovers your vision, that uncovers your soul purpose. And then I'm here for that next phase of stepping
Oh,
into the existence of. So, oh gosh, what happened for me? Because, yeah, definitely those leaps weren't from a place of security, but I guess an inner knowing. I
mhm.
feel like as a teenager, I was always able to choose my own path. And so I often will say, that my mum wanted me to be like a lawyer, a pharmacist, a doctor, all these things. And it's funny because I say I work with these people now and they're not happy in their jobs.
Hey,
And I don't
mom.
work with the ones that are happy, right? Um, and so even like it's stepping into as being an osteopath, she didn't know what that was. She didn't agree with it. And then 5 years later, I feel a bit bad saying this story, but 5 years later, she was then working with a colleague whose daughter was an osteopath and she was telling me how good it was. And I was like, okay. So I've always had an ability to like just choose what I want
Mm.
from a teen. And then I don't know, maybe some people go, oh, well, you've always had this within you. But I feel like whatever we want to get better at, we can cultivate that. So I talk about this cycle, and I've been speaking to a lot of my clients about it, is that everything starts with a desire. Then we have to make a decision to make ourselves a priority. Then we have to commit to the process, whatever that process might be. Okay, for me, it's my release process. That's where you start. Or it could be the process of creating your vision. Or right now, I'm trying to become a really good horse rider so that I can start my own foals when they're old enough. And so I'm committing to learning and putting myself in spaces where I'm just like at the bottom, no idea what I'm doing, and just ready to receive critical feedback. Okay, so desire, decision, we commit to the process. We do the work. We have to do the work.
You have to do.
And then support. That's been the thing that really has helped me move forward. So 2014 was my first exposure to personal development,
Mhm.
coaching, big groups. And then I would draw back and go, oh, I can do this on my own. And then I would maybe look at hiring a coach for one-off sessions. And now I'm all for the big commitments of like 6 months, a year long, whether it be a group or one-to-one. It just depends on what moves I want to make.
Mhm.
And so I really feel like it's the support element, being in groups where other women are doing like holy cow stuff. You know, in
Mhm.
the group that we were in, there were people who were still in employed jobs and not earning much money. And then there were multimillionaires in our group. And I absolutely loved that. And it
Yeah.
wasn't about business strategy. It was, I don't know what that group was, but it's one of the best investments I've ever made. And I
Oh,
didn't even know what I was getting right. So, yeah, it's been the support, the
yeah.
people that I've attracted into my life. And once upon a time, I felt like I didn't have any of these people in my life. And then I started, I guess, because I had the desire and I made a decision, people could see that and they wanted to help me.
Yeah.
But support is always what has helped me speed up the timelines of getting to where I want to go. But right now, as you said, we were talking about transitions. I feel like there's this other version of me to step into, but I've got to get clear. I've got to get clear on what's the next impossible step to anchor myself into, because now I've actually created enough evidence. And now my moves might sound big, but I also have little moves that almost, it feels a bit weird to talk about them on social media or on my podcast because they seem, I don't know, it's just like, why would you talk about that? But sometimes it's about the small cumulative moves that then lead to the bigger one. And I think that sometimes people feel that the gap is just too big or they're scared of the work.
Hmm.
Or sometimes I feel like people talk a bit too much about the feminine when the person doesn't have the structure.
Hmm.
And so then they go into this feminine stuff without any structure and then, you know, going with the flow and it just doesn't work. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation, but it's having a desire, but then breaking it down
Yes.
into achievable goals. That's the masculine aspect.
This is so good because I wrote down choose what you want. And I think that is one key element of this session is choose what you want. Like really take some time to contemplate exactly where you are, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, sit down for a second and really take a few minutes. What do I want? What do I want? And don't just, quickly respond, I want more money. Or I want to have some
Mm.
chocolate cake. What do I want? What have I been hoping about? What do I really want for my future? And then I love that you said, have the desire and make the decision. And then you need to make sure that you are putting yourself as a priority. And for a lot of people, that is challenging. We're taught to be selfless and giving. And when you're a mom and you're raising kids, you do need to put your children as a priority, but there are times that we need to really understand you are this one soul with all these gifts and talents, and you have this purpose here, whatever you want that to be. And you have to honor that your soul's path is just as important as your children's and as your husband's and as your job. And if you self sacrifice too much, then what is going to happen to all the things that you could give to the world, all the things that you could contribute? And so choose what you want. I really want anyone who has listened to this to take the time to choose. And then I'm also going to echo what you said about putting yourself in environments with people. I think sometimes social media gets a bad rap, but I would have never met you without social media. In fact, I would say 80% of the people that have been interviewed for this podcast are people I met through social media by putting myself in groups. And a lot of those groups, I felt like I didn't belong. I went in there thinking, I am the smallest one in here. I am the least successful. I am the quietest. I am a natural born observer. So I've been in many groups before where I just sit back on the sidelines and I observe and I learn and I didn't participate. And I can see where I missed out on some friendships. I missed out on opportunities because I had decided that I wasn't good enough yet. I kept thinking, well, maybe at some point, I'll participate later. Or I didn't feel like I had anything to contribute. And yet, if we can flip that and recognize social media, Facebook, especially Facebook, there are countless groups on there where you can jump in there and you can be the smallest person in the room, the least successful person in the room. But when you get in there, if you go in with the fact, I'm going to be in here surrounded by the evidence of what's possible. And if you stay long enough, there's going to be new people that come in that are now the new, fresh feeling what you were feeling, and you can offer that to them. But there is nothing like being surrounded by, even though mine are virtual surroundings, being surrounded by people at your same point, going through similar experiences ahead of you, so you can be inspired by that and you can look to their vision and realize it's not as hard as you think. And then people behind you that you can completely relate to what that felt like. And the other thing I wanted to go back to, because I want to make sure it doesn't slip through the cracks here, is I do think it's so important, if there is something going on in your life. I loved that you reinforced that you want to work with people before the diagnosis, because so many of us, when there's something going on, we either rush to the doctor for the diagnosis or we put it off until we have to get the diagnosis. But then we just take what that person says. It's like, here it is. The gavel is set. And I think that happens with cancer and terminal illnesses. Oh, I've been told I'm going to die. What if? What if not? And what if we didn't need to go get that particular diagnosis? What if you start to say, something feels off here? I know I'm not feeling right. My environment doesn't feel right. My body is letting me know some things even before it's happening to my body. If you can come and get these resources and start to see the signals ahead of time and get her book, that will prevent you from needing the diagnosis. And that's why you've created this work, is you want to help as many people as possible so that it doesn't end up there. It's prevention instead of whatever the word is, solution.
Reactive.
Yes, or
But
instead of treatment. It's really, really, really important that we do start listening to our bodies. And if you're not in the middle of something now, look back. What are the things that have come up for me before? Or do I wake up happy? Am I miserable every day? Do I dread going to my job? Do I know this isn't the right relationship for me? Do I know I'm not in a great environment? Is it time to move? Is it time to let some things go? And for me, one of the hardest challenges is in between where I am and in between where I'm going. And especially the not knowing, that gap. We've all talked about that, the void, where, okay, I'm not comfortable here anymore, but I don't know where I'm landing over here. And so to have support in that as well. You offer so many different things. You offer before someone really is too far on their path. Then, okay, if I am on this path, how can we turn that around? How can we look at what I'm facing differently? And then, okay, yeah, I've gotten through a lot of that, but I'd like to manifest better and I'd like to be able to get to, because you've lived it all. And those are the
mm,
best types of mentors out there. Best types are the ones that have lived it and are still walking it. And I love that you admitted to the, I'm learning how to horseback ride, because I think people forget there are wildly successful people out there, but it doesn't mean they've mastered everything. And what makes them wildly successful is they were willing to take risks in the areas that really matter to them. And then, of course, they're going to take risks in these other things too. We haven't mastered everything. You can be really good at something. And like I'm terrible at bowling and I can't speak Spanish to save my life. There are so many things that I am terrible at, but then I've mastered other things, right? So isn't that the beauty of life? I love this so much. Okay,
Yeah.
so anything you want to add? Anything that you feel is important before we start to wrap up?
Oh gosh, I feel like we could talk for hours, Lisa.
I know. We could. And that's the thing. I'm like, this could go on for 3 hours and we're supposed to
Yeah.
keep it around an hour, which might,
Um,
maybe we'll have to do another one in 6 months.
a version 2.0 or whatever
Mhm.
it's going to be. I just want to emphasize the letting go of identities. It's huge. And it's funny that it actually doesn't take that long to work through your past.
Mm,
And then the issue is letting go of those stories and the fact that people have known you for so long as the person in pain or so on. And it can be challenging setting boundaries. And I always say to people, people talk about setting boundaries, but they don't actually know how to set boundaries. And for me, it's actually knowing what your values are. And your values are going to change as you step into new identities and versions of yourself, as you let go of things.
mm,
And for me, writing this book is, I say this book has taken on an identity of its own. It's been crazy, like the stories and the happenings behind the scenes. I've just been recording it as I go so I don't forget it and documenting it myself. But that is a huge milestone for me. And so I'm going to have to redo my vision. I'm going to have to look at my values again and what is the standard that I hold and what are the boundaries that I hold for this next level version of myself.
mm.
So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say based on what you shared, but we're on the same page.
I'm glad you said that because we have an identity of who I am right now, the person I've been and who I am right now. So this Lisa does this, lives there, has these relationships, is this. I'm not a mom, I'm not a wife, those type of roles, but they play into our identity. And it's important to also contemplate, aside from choose what you want. What is the identity I've been up to now, and what parts am I willing to let go of? What parts do I really want to let go of? And then what else am I willing to let go of? That can be small or big. I remember I love to move. And every time I loved the fresh start, I loved the change, I loved building a new life everywhere. Every time I would move, one of my things I would think was, this time, if I move, no one needs to know that I'm shy. Maybe this time I won't be shy. Maybe I'll try on being extroverted. It wasn't like it wasn't bad or good. I just kept thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to try something new. And I think we can make that fun. Who have I been until now? And then what other parts of my identity could I test out? Could I try? Could I think
Yeah.
about? But I got to be willing to let go of the identity I've taken on, the numerous identities, the parts of my character, the roles. I've got to be willing to look at what can I leave in the past. And then when you
Mm,
let that part go, it leaves the space for, well, who do I want to be next? And
yeah.
right, with the boundaries, we look around and, but this is what they expect of me. This is who they know me as. And yeah, people are going to figure out you change, but isn't that the
Mm,
point? We're not
mm.
supposed to remain the same our whole lives. So be willing to be the one that says, okay, yeah, that's who I was. And now I'm trying this. Yeah, that's who I was. And I want to be a bit different. I want to be better. I want to try something new. And it's actually really inspiring to see people do that. You may not get 100% positive feedback, but that's okay. Do we really
Yep.
care? It's all about your life, right? I love this conversation. Show your book one more time so people can
Yeah.
know.
So
And
there's two versions.
yes, we will
This is the
make
first
sure we have
one.
all the links, and I will make sure we put the link to your missing link. Okay, tell people how they can find you. Where are you? What social medias, all of your, how do they find you?
So I often say sometimes I've been threatened to be booted off social media. I also love what you said about social media because like I host a lot of my groups online and via Facebook.
Mhm.
And it's the easiest for me. And people come in blaming social media. I'm like, hang on, but social media is also great. It's not the problem, it's how you choose to interact with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anywho, so if you can find me on Instagram, The Art of Listening to Your Body. I do have a podcast that I'm a little bit haphazard about, but there are a bunch of episodes on the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. And yeah, that should cover all bases. You should be able to find your way around that, find your way to the Missing Link masterclass and the Navigating Emotions Behind Cancer masterclass. I think that's about it. And
I'll
then
make
I'll share
sure.
the link for the book. Once these limited edition ones are gone, then it should redirect you to Amazon when I've got the paperback
Yeah.
version going.
I'll make sure that all the links are below. And then my favorite question I love to ask everybody at the end is consider, oh, and I already, it's funny, I'm going to start laughing, which I have never laughed, but because you and I talked about we don't know what's coming next. But okay, here's my serious question. Considering the woman that you are now and the woman that you feel like you are becoming, that's why I laughed. How would you finish this sentence? I am the one who.
Oh gosh, you've really put me on the spot. I am the one who can just like read you like a book, literally, and can tell you the truth, whether or not you're ready to hear it or not, but lead you forwards and walk the path with you.
I love that. It's so good. You're so great. I'm so glad that we're friends. I've loved this podcast, and I hope that you all go and find her because she has something to offer every single one of you. There's just so many elements of what you do, and you don't have to be in chronic pain and you don't have to have a diagnosis. She has ability to read you and to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, which is amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved this. We'll see you guys again soon.